It is the June Bay Trail Confidential. Happy June to everybody. Happy Pride Month to us all. And really thrilled to be doing this show. We got some really cool stuff to talk about. But first, I want to give you guys a chance to finish up that poll. I'll give you another like 30 seconds or so. And then I'm going to end the poll and share the results with you. We'll find out which region is the best represented. Although I do have to say, we don't let the guests participate in the poll. So there was a little bit of disenfranchisement going on here. We are brought to you by San Francisco City Guides, a nonprofit that's been around since 1978. And our walking tours are going strong now. In fact, I'm doing a walking tour of the Salesforce Transit Center tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. A couple people canceled. So if anybody wants to jump on that, let me know. Chat me or send me an email and I'll get you information on that, but we'd love to have you join us for that. And I do have on my website show notes for this episode, including some pretty cool information that would help you if you ever wanted to do this around the Bay in one day idea. And also a lot of information about Heron's Head Park, which is what we're going to be talking about. Here's our agenda for tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results with you guys so you can see what I'm seeing. So very evenly matched among San Francisco, Contra Costa, Alameda counties. Funny because among the guests, we have representation from all those places. Although we have one person from Marin. Mark, you're from Marin, and seems like nobody from Marin is on the show yet. Maybe they're gonna tune in for the this. We're gonna post this recording on YouTube as we do. And I'm seeing a lot of hiking. Hiking is the most popular of the activities that we put down. Only one other person says that biking is their primary activity. I say only one other because that's what I do a lot of. And then looking at the places you visited, good to see some of you have been to Heron's Head, but not a ton of you. So you're going to be learning a lot about that. Only half of you have been to the ferry building. I don't understand that. And yeah, not too many people have been to Oracle Park. I guess we're all hanging out in our parts of the Bay. And then this question, have you used public transit to visit the Bay Trail? And more than half of you have. And that's what we're going to really be talking about with this Around the Bay expedition. And always good to see that many of you are visiting new places as a result of things you see on this show. So thanks for those responses. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Around the Bay in one day expedition that I did with Mark Freiberg and Tom Lent. We are going to have a contest related to that. So pay attention to what we say. You might win a set of Bay Trail map cards if you guess the answer to a question I will pose later on. And then we're going to talk about a fabulous park in San Francisco, Heron's Head Park. It's one of my favorite places. And here's our guests. So I already mentioned Mark Freiberg, who was part of the Around the Bay in one day expedition, along with Tom Lent. Mark and Tom, how are you doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Great to have you guys aboard. And then Tom is also, you're also involved with, we'll talk about in a little bit, 350 Bay Area's fundraiser that's going on this weekend. I have Carol Bach from the Port of San Francisco. How are you tonight, Carol?
Unmuted now. Great, thanks.
Great to have you. And Heron's Head is a Port of San Francisco property, so we're really pleased to have you to talk about that. You have a lot of history with that. And then Mark Hammond, who is, he lives in Bayview Hunters Point, very close to Heron's Head Park, has spent a lot of time in that area. And also, I think really importantly, served on the Southern Waterfront Advisory Committee. And Michael, in addition, you told me you were involved in the effort to get the PG&E plant shut down. And I'm just tremendously grateful to everybody who worked on that, because that whole part of the Bay is so much better off because of that. How are you doing tonight, Michael?
I'm doing just fine. That was a long fought campaign to get that closed down.
Well, we so many people benefited from that. And you're going to be talking to us about Heron's Head. We always like to show people Bay Trail cred, where people have been on the Bay Trail. So here's Mark's Bay Trail cred. And Mark, you're probably adding to this, right? Because I know you're doing the AIDS life cycle this coming weekend, right?
Yeah, it's coming week, actually. It's 7 days, but I know I've ridden a lot of training rides. Not many have been on or around the immediate Bay Trail, I'm afraid.
Well, you have great Bay Trail cred, but lots of other cool places to visit. Tom, yours is very extensive. And I know, actually for Mark and Tom, this section up here is something they added as part of the ABODE expedition. What's your favorite part of the whole thing, Tom? What's your favorite place on the Bay Trail?
My favorite place on the Bay Trail, possibly the Carquinez Strait. That's a really cool area. And I also, the Carquinez Scenic Route, someone just put that in the chat. That's really great. And I really love going down to the South Bay around the Salt Flats and riding on some of those long gravel roads out there. And we'll talk more about this later, but I'm generally just love anywhere that I can get to the Bay Trail reasonably close from a BART station and do it all by transit and bike.
There you go, transit and Bay Trail access. Carol of Port of San Francisco, here's your Bay Trail cred.
Yes, thank you.
And obviously very extensive in San Francisco, as one would expect. But also you're a bicyclist, is that right, Carol?
No.
Oh, you're not a bicyclist. So you're
I'm
doing
not.
this all on foot.
Yep.
And that's like Ethel and I talk about that a lot. That Ethel feels it's a little bit unfair. We'll take a look back. Let's take a look. First of all, we'll do you want to jump in and say something about that, Ethel?
I think I made my point.
Yeah. Michael, you have very extensive cred in San Francisco because you've lived there for 55 years now. I love the fact, by the way, that the very first place you lived was the Haight-Ashbury in 1967. Being a Haight-Ashbury tour guide, I loved hearing that. But you've also been to these other places, including Alviso, and maybe I didn't give you enough cred. I think you probably have a lot more.
Well, I've been to a lot of different interesting places, but I've never really tried to travel very far on the trail. So my lines are not as long as some of the others.
That's okay. I always feel like there's being many places and then being in quality time spent in places.
Maybe your lines are thicker for having experienced them more deeply than those of us
right.
who cruise by on a bicycle.
That's right. We gave you some extra pixels there.
Okay.
So what does that mean for Lee, right? Chris, Lee is so busy working for the Bay Trail project. How are you doing tonight, Lee, by the way?
I'm doing really well. I really do need to get out of the office a little bit more.
I think we need to kidnap Lee and take him to someplace on the Bay Trail that he's never been to before. Let's try to do that. And then here's yours, Ethel. And Ethel, I'm always trying to think of new places to send Ethel. And I think I have actually, this background is where I went today on my bike ride. And it's a place called Alameda Point. Basically biking on these giant runways, I guess. I think that's what they were. Very cool place. So maybe we'll send you over there. You're doing well tonight, Ethel?
I am.
Very happy to have you. And then here's mine. I know I'm a bit of a show off. What can I say? In fact, this is actually all of my Strava tracking since the start of the pandemic.
Wow.
Including the ABODE expedition. So we're
What
going
do
to
the different colors mean there, Rodney?
I'm not sure. I think it might have been my mood or something. It's like a mood ring or something. my Apple Watch senses this is like a really intense time in here. But then this is the ABODE expedition. It's purple. I was obviously very, very mellow. So we got a bunch of Bay Trail updates. First and foremost, we're not going to be doing a show in July because I'm going to be traveling. So that's my vacation. We'll be back August 3rd with some cool stuff. I thought I'd mention this. This was something in the news that came up. This dude found this tunnel that goes under the Bay Bridge toll plaza. And he did a TikTok video, which was really, it was really cool to see. I was kind of blown away because I'd been by the entrance to this tunnel many times. But the sad thing is when you put something like this in TikTok, what happens is you've kind of clued Caltrans into the fact that lots of people know about this cool tunnel, and you'll see at the end of this video what they did about that. Yes, they put this darn this locked gate there, and so I never got to visit the tunnel. If this had only been publicized on Bay Trail Confidential, I think we would have done a lot better for ourselves. But I thought I'd mention that. Did want to mention the Road to a Livable Climate events that both Tom and I are going to be speaking at this. So I'll be speaking on June 5th in Napa about Bay Trail Confidential and using the Bay Trail to get around. And I know, Tom, you're going to be speaking at their East Bay event on June the 11th.
Yeah, I'll be talking about e-bikes.
You're going to be talking all about e-bikes, which you're an expert on. And
When's that?
that is going to be this weekend and the following weekend. Unfortunately, the one in San Francisco got canceled. That was the one I was planning to do, and they just didn't do a good enough job publicizing it. Didn't get a lot of participants.
So where is it? Like, I get it's in the East Bay, but where?
Tom, where is it starting? Like, is it Richmond in that area? Richmond down to Emeryville or something like that?
Tom, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, it is like kind of Richmond to Fruit Vale-ish, something like that. With some of it's along the Bay Trail, and some of it is inland, particularly around Berkeley and Oakland, looking at different bike infrastructure. To talk about that. That's what one of the signature things of this. It's not just a bike ride. There are a lot of stops along the way to look at both environmental problems, like some of the toxics issues up in Richmond, and potential airport expansion down in Oakland, and positive things like the bike infrastructure improvements recently in Berkeley and Oakland, and a whole range of things. So the idea is to have to experience all these things and have discussions about what 350 is recruiting people to do to beat the climate problem, and how bicycling and walking and can be part of the solutions, and things we can do to make that more appealing to people.
Yeah, and folks can go to this website to get more information. If I didn't put it on my show notes, I will right after the program.
Okay.
And then our friend Larry Rosenblum asked me to mention that there's going to be a 50th anniversary of the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge. So 50 years ago, dudes were breaking into the Watergate Hotel, and that was not a good thing. But 50 years ago, also, this guy, Don Edwards, who was in Congress, was able to get legislation passed to start the Wildlife Refuge. This is one of the great treasures of the Bay Area. I haven't been given a time, but it's going to be in Fremont on July the 2nd. So it's probably the Don Edwards property close to the Dunbarton Bridge. Larry, if you're in, if you have any information you want to add to that in chat, go ahead. And there will be a sign up on Eventbrite. So those are my updates on stuff going on. Don't want to spend too much time on that. Want to get into the show, and then go to the show notes for links to lots of those things. But here it is, our Around the Bay in One Day expedition. We talked about it on the last show and went on May the 12th and did it, Tom, Mark, and I. And this is our route that we took, and we'll tell you a little more about that. We use all these different transit services, and also we're on our bicycles for about 40 odd miles. And the quiz question is going to be, what was the average speed for the day, including time when we were stopped? And we'll be posting that at the end, and I'll be asking you to throw your ideas in the chat. Ignore anything you see on this thing that might help you answer that question. This is kind of what it looked like. This is a really fast version of it. We weren't actually going this fast.
Almost.
But this is the route we took, and we started in the East Bay, used a Vine Transit bus to get up to Napa, and then rode our bikes across the top of the bay here to Petaluma, where we got on the SMART train, and then we connected with the Larkspur Ferry. rode a little bit in San Francisco to the Caltrain station, took Caltrain all the way down to San Jose, and we had a very fun time at San Jose that we're going to talk about. And then we rode to the BART station at Berryessa and rode that all the way back. And here we are starting off. And let me start by asking, I'll ask you first, Mark, what was like the biggest surprise for you of this experience?
I guess it was sort of how accommodating these various transit agencies were of our bicycles, the three of us showing up with bikes, such as your picture there on the bus. The bus had a rack that it could accommodate three, but, we were all nervous that there might be one or more people already with bikes on the bus. And, came to find out that the driver indicated, well, if that's the case, we'll just bring extra, your whatever extra bike there might be inside the bus, and we'll prop it up here against the wall. Just one example of how accommodating they were. It was really quite easy.
Yeah, he was a terrific bus driver. He actually said he would pray for us, which I think helped.
I think it helped. I felt it. Yeah.
And there he is with our buses in front.
We all made it back safely. So there you go.
So what about you, Tom? What were your big surprises or surprise from this event?
Well, it was really interesting to see the vast differences in access across the different transit systems. Some of them are super easy, like the smart train. You just roll your bike right on the straight level off the platform. Our other train, Caltrain, was probably one of the more challenging ones, with a real steep stairway to get on and off the train. Certainly not ADA accessible or or easily bike accessible, particularly if you were taking a heavier e-bike. They're all over the map. Someone asked in the chat about the size of bike racks, and those vary. Some systems still have two bike racks, but many have expanded to 3 bike racks. But I consider 3 bike racks still pretty small, and we were a little nervous about that. We're happy to kind of get that first stretch over early in our trip, so we wouldn't have to worry about access, since the rest of them, the ferries and the trains, all had plenty of room for multiple bicycles. My prediction on bike racks is that within 5 to 10 years, we'll think of the 3 bike racks as a relic of the past, and all buses will have at least those big, racks that can take 10 or more bikes that you see on the tech buses now.
It is kind of a natural to marry bicycle transportation with public transit. I think we were really experiencing that, like how like one of the things I was thinking about, like a lot of people are going to hear about this and say, well, I would never like take a day and go around the entire bay just to do it. But like Mark or Tom, like what are the implications for other people who might not do this, but what kind of things could they imagine doing? Utilizing public transit.
I want to say that my big Bay Trail cred is not because I have looped all the way around the bay in massive 50 to 100 mile stretches. It's more though my son has gone all the way around the South Bay, but he's crazy. It's more that I've done a lot of of rides that range anywhere from 15 to 30 miles. Stretches on the Bay Trail, and have used transit to connect them up. I've done that whole Bay Trail cred of mine has no cars involved in it at all. My wife and I have done most all of that by doing similar things to what we did in our loop, is taking a transit out to to near one part of the Bay Trail, riding to the Bay Trail, riding down to another BART station or bus stop. And it's a great way to stay off of I-80 and other clogged places with your cars, and just have a nice relaxing day out in the bay. And I think they're real options for people who all of our guests tonight who are primarily walkers. Also, there are plenty of opportunities to take one-way trips, looping it together with 2 different transit modes. And instead of having to do an out and back, you can go twice as far.
Yeah, and I want to ask Mark, like Mark, you just happen to be someone who loves trains. And you told me the story about as a kid going, like you would ride your bike from your house to go see Caltrain.
Mm.
So like what, so how did this, as someone who loves trains, what were there any revelations from this experience?
Gee, these passenger trains are a lot more comfortable than the freight trains I hopped when I was in college.
Yes.
So, you know, it's a lot less windy and dusty, so they're really nice. I would say, you know, getting back to your earlier question about what lesson do I say kind of applies to the common person, maybe, you know, somebody who isn't thinking about ever circumnavigating the bay. But I would say that, you know, if you've never taken your bike on any transit agency and you've always been, you know, anxious about that, I would say you could relax. We tried out all these different transit agencies, and in each case, it was easy. So, you know, I mean, you always want to check ahead and understand what the rules and procedures are, but don't hesitate to bring your bike.
I think the one thing we ran into was some places where there were stairs, like the train station at San Jose Duridan. Hope I'm saying that right. You know, I think we had to do some carrying on the stairs, and that's also often a problem with Bart. Bart has elevators, but for some bikes, the elevators aren't long enough. But I actually just went on the Bart website and they list the dimensions of all their elevators because they know people are taking long bikes now. So long bikes and some, like Tom, I think, you know, like the e-bikes can be somewhat heavy. Like it can be an issue having to carry those up and down stairs. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's the e-bikes are definitely heavier and something to pay attention to. Just to the Bart also has a an elevator status web page where you can check to make sure that the stations you're going to have their elevators in action right now. And I'm going to give a little pitch for my Climate Action Center website right now, which has a page on it devoted to bicycling around the San Francisco Bay Area, and has links to all of the transit agencies and any hints about, you know, about things you might want to watch out for, like the elevator issue. There's a link to the, you know, Bart's elevator page and things like that to help you plan your trip and keep it smooth and without unexpected challenges like that. And in answer to Chris O on the chat, we did this all by Clipper card, and virtually all of the transit systems in the Bay Area take Clipper cards. So that makes it, you know, a much smoother experience. We didn't have to figure out what our fares are going to be and have exact change and all of that. We just ping the transit card and away we go.
That was kind of important because we had a tight connection in San Francisco. I think we had 20 minutes from the time we got off the ferry to the time the train took off.
Right.
Something like that. Now, we did this with bikes, but I think you could do a lot of this stuff on foot too. You know, obviously it's going to take a little longer, but I believe you could go all the way around the bay without using a bike, and it might even be possible to do it almost as quickly as we did ours, because I found out about a bus that goes from Napa to Petaluma. So I think the walkers should be thinking about doing stuff like this. An idea that this whole thing gave me was, you know, the transit goes very well with the Bay Trail, but I started thinking about the Ridge Trail. Could you do some Ridge Trail, either hikes or bike rides that would, you'd take a bus to one location maybe, and then you'd hike to another location. And I'm pretty sure that works. And I've actually been talking to some of my Ridge Trail friends about maybe doing a show where we talk more about that. So that's something that could be coming. Now I did want to get to down in San Jose. We had a really fun experience because Lisa Hetler Smith, who's in the audience right now, and she knew about our expedition. She invited us to stop by her house in San Jose, and here is her dog, Juniper, also known as Junie Kangaroony. And we don't need an explanation for how she got that name because she was basically jumping up and down in the window of the door. That's Lisa coming to get the door. I think that's you, Mark, in the reflections. This is like one of those bad pictures that turns out to be a good picture. Maybe, I don't know.
It's sort of my Hitchcock moment there,
Yeah,
Sean.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Instead of the birds, it's the dog. And this is Lisa and her husband, Gordon. Very cool. The 49-mile scenic drive sign, that just seemed like a perfect background. And we stopped and had some pizza that Lisa got. We made friends with Juniper, which was fun. And it was just kind of nice to be able to kick back a little bit. So this is another thing you can do with all this, right? Is this is a way that this brings us all together, these connections, right? And then we headed to Bart. By the way, we made friends with a whole bunch of people at the transit agencies. This was our Bart. How often do you get to meet your Bart train driver? But we did, because this is Berryessa, which is where the train originates, and she was in a big hurry. We were going to make her late, but she nevertheless agreed to pose for a selfie with us. I don't know if we got her name, but she did a great job. It was a really great Bart ride.
Well, I love the way you would tell people, we're the first people ever to circumnavigate the bay as far as we know. And they'd be like, oh, can I get my picture with you?
Yeah, we're claiming this. The Bay Trail Confidential fact checkers are saying this is a all-time world record for going around the bay. Doesn't mean someone else couldn't come along and try to break the record. I would invite all of you to try. Here we are with our bikes on Bart. And I don't know, it was a really beautiful time of night to be going from San Jose up to the East Bay in the twilight. It's really kind of nice and kind of an interesting way to see our geography. It's almost like I don't know how many of you remember The Sopranos, but like you could have that Sopranos theme song playing as this all goes by. And then here we are finishing up at El Cerrito Plaza and back at the Calusa Circle, which is where I live. So this is the big opportunity to win a set of Bay Trail map cards. And I will say that ABODE guests are not eligible to win, but I'd say the other guests are. So what was the average speed for the day, including time when we were stopped? And go ahead and throw that in the chat. You can either chat me privately if you don't want anyone else to see what your guess is, or go ahead and be public. You can do that too. And we will award a set of Bay Trail map cards to the person who comes closest. Just comes closest. You don't have to worry about going over or anything. Seeing a couple guesses out there.
Rodney, does the average speed include the time you were on transit, I assume?
Yeah, it includes everything. Includes the time eating pizza with Lisa. I'm going to give you guys 15 more seconds to come up with a guess. Okay, I've seen a bunch of different guesses.
I'll give you a hint. I had 3 slices of the pizza myself, so there's that much time you need to factor.
That's true. Yeah, it was really good pizza.
But we don't know how fast you eat, though.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the average speed, I'm going to make you wait a little bit, 16.05 miles an hour. And let's see, I see Rich at 15.5. Is anybody a little closer? Is that, I think that's going to be our closest one, 15.
Rob,
No,
15.9. Ross.
15.9.
Ross Heitkamp, who is a Ridge Trail guy, actually. So I don't know, Ross. You probably have something you can do with these cards. So Ross is going to be the winner. Congratulations, Ross. Maybe we'll get him off of the Ridge Trail. Although I'm planning to do a lot more on the Ridge Trail. I just want that to be said. And then here's Mark's your relive video of us going around the bay with some photos, which is kind of nice. And because of the 3 bike limit of the bus, that's the limit of how big a group you could have to do this. But if you did something where maybe you started in Napa, if you didn't care so much about the bus, then the other forms of transit, the Caltrain, you can there's absolutely no limit with Caltrain, the ferry, the smart train. You know, you wouldn't get like maybe 40 bikes on a smart train, but you could probably get at least a dozen. So I don't know. I guess it's that one section that is a little bit of the hindrance. Or you could just take multiple buses. Maybe you do that. But you know, I would love to do this again. I would love to see this become a thing. Now,
If you want an extra credit question, I've just added up in the response to the chat question how much we spent on transit fares over the course of the day.
oh, okay. Extra credit question. How much did we spend on transit for the day? I don't think I know that answer myself.
I just looked up my Clipper card transaction history for the day and in response to it.
Okay,
that
so
chat question.
you'll tell us in a minute. I think you guys, Mark or Tom, I told you guys you could ask me questions if you wanted. So does
Yeah,
anyone-
while
we
people
get-
are putting their guesses for the fare total in there, I'll ask you. As you have now, Rodney, you have now circumnavigated the bay in two ways. Once by bicycle over the course of a week or so, with a little extra for smoke.
in bees.
And and then another time in this one day with this mashup of transit and bike. And I'm interested in your sort of comparison of the feel of doing it those different ways and any other thoughts you have on it.
Well, I thought they were both really worthwhile. My big revelation on biking around the entire bay was when I did. I got stung by a bee, and I had to stop for the day, and then I had to, go back to where that had happened and set off again. And that forced me to go through an area, through the Coyote Hills Regional Park in the morning and go more slowly. I wasn't in as much of a hurry. And that's my big revelation is, the slower you go, the better time you're going to have. And I know a lot of people think of bicyclists as these people who really want to go fast and they keep track of their speed and everything. But for me, exploring the Bay Trail, I love going slow. And I love going at interesting times of the day, like morning. But they were both worthwhile, and I would do both again. I was, at first I thought, being on transit, I'm just going to be sitting on transit a lot, but it was actually kind of fun. We had a particularly good time on the smart train because we got to meet the train operator, the conductor of the train. I'm trying to get us back to that picture. There we go. So I think I can find it right here. And we just had a really good time talking to this guy about what it's like to be doing like train. He's worked in trains his whole life. He did freight trains, and then he converted to passenger trains because he doesn't have to be up like all hours of the night when you do passenger trains. So that was fun. And it's just kind of, we had also had a good time talking to the ferry operators and briefly with the Bart operator. So it's just kind of cool to see the perspective, hear the perspective of these people involved with transit. And I think they appreciated the fact that we were doing something a little offbeat, like using their service, but not in the conventional, like go to work kind of way, right? This is kind of funny. This is a whole other place in Marin that we hung out at waiting for the ferry called the Green Bray Boardwalk. And it's very close to the ferry, but this is not the way to the ferry. It's kind of a kick.
So Rodney, my question for you has to do with the kind of connections between the transit agencies. And, the longest that we had to be on our own and using our pedaling power was in the North Bay there between Napa and Petaluma. And I think you subsequently discovered that there is a bus route that would take somebody between those locations. And then in the city of San Francisco, you mentioned, of course, we had to get from the ferry building to the Caltrain station. But another segment was at the South Bay there in San Jose, from the Diridon station on Caltrain over to the Bart, the southern end of the Bart station. And of course, we had the huge and delicious pizza delay. Thanks to Lisa and Gordon.
Thank you, Lisa.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gordon.
But if somebody were to bypass pizza or whatever, do you think it's doable, that South End connection down there in San Jose?
I think it's continuing to get better, but I do think you'd need to be an experienced cyclist. It's like it always, we often talk about this on this program. It's all about the gaps. And San Jose has made huge strides forward with their bike infrastructure, but there were just a couple places where we didn't really have a bike lane, or it was a little unclear, like how we make our left turn. So to me, it's doable for a lot of people, but I wouldn't take a 10-year-old on that. Now the long-term good news is Bart is eventually going to go to that. You said Diridon. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think it's named after Ron Diridon is how it's named.
Diridon Station. So Bart will eventually go all the way there. As I said, the bike infrastructure keeps getting better. They understand how important that is. So, every year we just see more and more really, really good, safe, protected bike lanes. And we just need that trend to continue,
We want the answer to the bonus question.
Yeah, what is the answer to the bonus question? How much did we spend?
Ross,
We're not
hit the
seniors, right?
Ross hit it again.
Wow.
His $32 guess is darn close to the exact amount, which was $33.80.
And I think we got $33.80 worth of fun out of this whole thing.
Oh, you bet.
I think it was more like $40 or $50 worth of fun.
Yeah.
Easily.
So the question in the chat was that senior prices or regular fares?
Regular
Not
fares.
Regular. I am
Oh.
65, but I hadn't managed to get my my senior card quite yet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Because with senior fares.
seniors even cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's like the ferry wasn't very expensive. The ferry, I think hopefully everybody knows riding around on the ferry is just a lot of fun.
Although it is salty on the bikes. It is
That's a good
very
point.
salty.
Yes.
Don't do what we did.
Yes.
Bring them into the ferry, bring them inside the ferry boat where they're protected.
Mm.
Yeah, because that salt water can be
Nice.
very, very bad for a nice bike. And this is my good bike that we took.
It was your good bike. Yeah.
Yes, well, hopefully it will continue to be. Any
So lots
other?
of hints like this for transiting with bikes on my website. Go check it out. And I know that Rodney Paul will have that in the show notes as well as the chat I put up earlier.
Yeah, it is in my show notes, and I highly recommend Tom. Tom has a lot of great information, including like e-bike information. It's like the world just continues to be a more fun place to go around by bike and transit. Like our transit keeps getting better too, so that's really good. Any last thoughts before we move on to Heron's Head? I think we probably should do that.
On to Heron's Head.
So we are going to talk now about a really great place in southwestern San Francisco. And before I introduce my guests to talk about it, I'll just mention my first experience with Heron's Head. I used to work at 7th and Townsend south of Market. And sometimes when work was kind of getting to me, I would hop on my bike and just go for a ride to clear my head. And one day I was riding down towards Bayview Hunters Point, and I came across Heron's Head Park. And just one of these things where you just go to this place and it's so peaceful. It's so scenic, and you just can't believe that it's been there for a while and that I didn't know about it. And so since then, I've been back many times. This video will give you a good sense. This is drone footage that I found on YouTube. We do want to say that using a drone at Heron's Head is not something we recommend people do because it could be bad for the bird life. Don't know if this person got permission, so don't try this yourself, because it can really have a very bad impact on bird life. Like birds that are nesting may leave their young. They'll freak out when they see your drone. But I'm stealing the thunder from this video. It's a very, very beautiful place. And I'm joined by Michael Hammond and Carol Bach. Michael, you live very close to Heron's Head Park. And Carol, you are the environmental. Carol, you better tell me what your title is.
I'm the environmental affairs manager for the Port of San Francisco, and I've been working on Heron's Head Park since its inception.
which is like, what was when did it officially?
We built the park in the winter of 98 and 99. So I think our opening day was like February of 99 or so.
And Michael, what's your history with that area?
Well, I moved here before it was a park. So I recall the conditions out there before it became a park. And boy, talk about a transformation. I mean, really from one of the worst environmental disasters you can imagine to this beautiful park. It just, not only did it transform, you know, the beauty of the area, but it transformed the sociology of the area, because that area was a no man's land that was inhabited by scofflaws and ne'er-do-wells. Their favorite activity was burning tires to extract the metal bands from the tires that they could then sell for scrap. So 24/7, there was this burning black tire smoke emanating from that site. And it was, you know, it was scary to be around there. It was unpleasant to smell that stuff. And then someone had the idea of turning this wasteland into a park. And even before it was inhabited by ne'er-do-wells, I mean, the very idea that it was a failed engineering attempt, it was a pier that collapsed because it was poorly engineered. And what you see is essentially a collapsed pier. And that was transformed into this amazing park. And for the first many years of its existence, it was, like the rest of this neighborhood, completely unheard of. I mean, you could go out there and on a warm Sunday afternoon, you could lie naked in the middle of the trail and no one would, you wouldn't see anybody all day. It was amazing. I used to go out there at the end and just sit out there for hours in the sun and not see a soul on a Sunday afternoon. Imagine in San Francisco, something like that.
Were you
Yeah.
naked at the time then?
Well, not completely.
Oh.
And when you talk about the end, I believe you mean this little area out here, which is
Yeah.
really delightful. You just go to the end of this spit of land. My understanding, is this correct, Carol, that this was the planned site of a second Bay Bridge crossing?
You know, I've heard that said a lot, but I haven't actually seen any evidence of that. It was originally planned to be another cargo terminal like Pier 96. And it as you go through this slide loop, Pier 96 pops up.
Oh,
But
that's that thing that we just saw a second ago. That's that thing right there, right?
yes, exactly. So the port started in 1970 putting fill in the water to build another cargo terminal. And I think so that happened between 1970 and 1977, which at the time there was a big change going on in the shipping industry, and containerized cargo technology was really starting to develop. And there was this alternative shipping technology called lighter aboard ship, or LASH shipping technology. And the Port of San Francisco threw in its lot with the LASH type of shipping, loading and unloading. And obviously over the course of the 60s, 70s and 80s, cargo shipping really won the day. Containerized cargo shipping. So, and in fact, if you can stop right there, Rodney, what you see in the water is the dilapidated remnants of a collapsed, what they call the LASH pier, which was a long skinny pier that we'll see in the aerial view of the type of construction where you would use this LASH technology. So somebody at the Port of San Francisco, and Michael, we should get back to that story that you have about former Mayor Alioto, but somebody in San Francisco bet wrong about where the shipping industry was going, and we were gonna construct this lash cargo terminal. It became clear during the years that we were starting to construct it that it wasn't going to be used for that purpose, that containerized cargo is where the world was going, and that Oakland was where the world was going, and that San Francisco wasn't really going to be competitive with that kind of shipping. So we stopped building the cargo terminal and just left all of the fill that we had started placing in the bay. We just left it there. And although we had permits from the agencies that regulate these kinds of things, after some number of years, oh, there we go. There's our aerial. So you could see Pier 96 is this nice, fully constructed cargo terminal. And you can see on the left-hand side of that,
that's what that is.
Pier that has since mostly fallen into the water, and the beginnings of Heron's Head Park on the far left. So at some point, there's a picture of fill operations, placement of fill in the bay to construct the new land sometime in the 70s. And at some time after the port decided that we didn't really need another cargo terminal after all, and we stopped filling, the agencies that had given us the permits to do that came back and said, you know, we gave you permits to build a cargo terminal. We did not give you a permit to just leave a pile of stuff in the bay. And there were enforcement actions. There was, you know, dispute of enforcement. There was a lot of arguing that went on for years, probably more than a decade. And what I actually love about Heron's Head Park is that it really represents a creative problem solving by government. And that just doesn't happen that often. And it was, right? It was initiated partly by the Golden Gate Audubon Society, which saw BCDC, the Bay Conservation and Development Agency Commission, and the port arguing about what to do. And the Golden Gate Audubon Society said, hey, why don't you create a wetland habitat and park for people to enjoy? And wouldn't that be a great way to solve your legal dispute? And that was really how Heron's Head Park was born.
Is it somewhat similar to what happened with Middle Harbor in the Port of Oakland, where, you know, it's like there was a problem, but the solution was to create this public space?
Yes, it is somewhat similar. Yeah, except that Middle Harbor Shoreline Park in Oakland was planned. Like Oakland went into it saying, like, we're going to have all this environmental impact with our 50-foot deepening project. We're going to dredge, you know, these deep channels, and in return, we're going to give you this. Whereas Heron's Head Park was just kind of, I mean, it's something that could have only happened in the 70s and 80s. Like it would never happen today, that the port would just be like, never mind. You know, we don't really need to finish that. So, you know, they copied us. Let's put it that way.
Bill in chat asked, what was behind the decision to leave the collapsed pier in place? And we can see it here.
Well, that is continuing to collapse a little bit by little bit. And part of the reason that we haven't removed it is that it's very expensive to remove. And the other part of the reason we haven't removed it is that over these decades of benign neglect, black oyster catchers have taken to nesting on this remnant structure. And it's one of the only places they nest in San Francisco. I think the only other place in San Francisco County is on Alcatraz. And so they like it because predators can't get to them on their little perches surrounded by water. And there's a little bit of a, you know, contention there about it would be great to get all that creosote treated wood out of the bay because the creosote is toxic. It's bad for water quality. It's bad for aquatic organisms. And yet it's this kind of unique nesting spot. So we don't know what to do with it.
Well, what we like is it's a good story, and you know, you'll be able to take friends to Heron's Head Park and point to this collapsed pier and say, hey, I know the story behind that. And
So I think the real story behind Heron's Head Park is that it was just a unique situation where there was some creative problem solving on the part of two otherwise recalcitrant government agencies that just had dug in, and they were bickering, and an environmental activist organization came to them with a solution that both parties, took the bait and went ahead and came up with a really positive solution.
Certainly is an example of taking a pig's ear and turning it into a silk purse.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a delightful place. What are some of the activities? So, Michael, you what do you like to do when you go to Heron's Head Park?
Well, my favorite activity out there is just to enjoy the solitude and watch the birds and reflect and meditate. It's when you get out to the end of the park, it's like being on a boat. You're so far out into the bay that your perspective changes dramatically. You no longer think of yourself as being in San Francisco. You think of yourself as being a part of the bay. And I love that experience. Unfortunately, it's becoming too popular to do that, especially on a nice warm day. There are places full of walkers and bicyclists, and a lot of other people have discovered Heron's Head, which is of course a good thing. And Michael Hammond has retreated to other secretive parts of India Basin for my solitude reflection.
Are there, when we visit, are there things as a resident you would ask us to keep in mind?
Well, nothing that good common sense and etiquette doesn't require. I mean, obviously, you don't want to disturb any parts of the sensitive habitat. It's pretty well marked. You don't want to chase birds or, do anything deleterious to the area. But it's an unbelievably gorgeous and unique place in San Francisco that is seriously, even to this day, undiscovered. And when I think about places like Crissy Field or Dolores Park or any of the other well discovered places in San Francisco, and you think about how crowded they become, and to this day, even now, Heron's Head is not like that at all.
Yeah, but I think the future is going to be very interesting because we've got the India Basin shoreline, and that's going to take a while to be completed. You were saying, Michael, it's probably like 2026 or something that we really get that thing fully operational.
Well, no, that's on your map. You see the 900 Ennis Park. That's actively being developed as we speak. They're cleaning it up, and I'm not sure what their timeline is, but I don't think the cleanup is going to be finished for another year or so. So it's going to be at least 3 or 4 years out before that park is finished and operational. Open space, the India Basin open space, is going to be incorporated into an area called the Big Green, which is being developed by Build Inc. And that's part of the large residential development that's being built out there, 1,500 units. And that construction starts this September, and it'll be at least 4 years or 5 before that's finished. And so when the India Basin open space is reopened, will probably be at least 4 or 5 years out, maybe more. But right now, it is the best kept secret in San Francisco because, unlike Heron's Head, it is truly deserted. And you can sit out there on a warm Sunday afternoon and literally not see a soul. And where else on the entire bay can you do that?
Yeah, it's so peaceful in in all these places right now, even with getting more use. Do always want to share with people our takeaways. So it's great for birding. I said rarely crowded. I guess, Michael, we have it's different ways of measuring what crowded is. The parking lot, we'll get to that in a second. The parking lot at Heron's Head does sometimes fill up, but it's just a very peaceful place. And I know, Carol, you were saying this is a really good place for people with any kind of accessibility issues, right?
Yeah, that's one of the other things that I really love about Heron's Head Park is it's just very accessible, both physically and psychologically. You get to be up close with the natural area in a way that you can't be when you're visiting, say, the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge. The wetlands are so vast and you're kind of far away. And the nice flat, wide trail is easy for people with any kind of mobility issues or little kids that maybe aren't going to walk very long. It's just very easy access.
Carol, I'm going to take it upon myself. I think somebody should assemble all the really great places to visit for if you do have a mobility issue. I can think of there's a Don Edwards location at Bear Island that's perfectly fantastic for anybody with any mobility issue. But you're right, there's a lot of other places that aren't. And this nice thing is, Heron's Head's right in San Francisco. So you were saying that senior centers are coming and taking, they'll get their bus and take people over there.
Yeah, there are a couple of local groups from the Bayview Hunters Point area, older adults walking groups that go there and just walk there from the public housing or other, nearby neighborhood areas. But there's also like an assisted living place that brings their bus full of older adults down to take a walk at Heron's Head.
Yeah. Did want to talk a little bit about transportation. It's not the easiest place to get to with public transit. There's a muni bus a little more than a quarter mile away. There is a bike share. If you use the bike share bikes, and I do, there's a kiosk right there at the site, which is great. Ample bike racks, but you're going to want to be careful. There is theft that goes on in that area. So bring a really good lock or maybe take your bike with you. Walk your bike maybe on the trail or be.
I would absolutely not leave a bike. I just wouldn't.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't leave anything in the car either.
Yeah. And the water trail isn't going to this location. The water trail has a landing at Islay Creek right now, but you could probably just get in a kayak or something and head out that way. Let's see, what else do we want to say? I know we wanted to talk about this Eastern Trail being closed, and let me find those slides that you sent me, Carol, about that. So some work's being done there that's going to impact people's ability to see if this is it. There's tell us about this, Carol. There's this.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to mention that. So that what you're showing was the original wetland enhancement plan and trail from back in the mid-90s, so long ago that's how we created scans, was to place a spiral bound book on a scanner. And in the 20 years since then, we've had a lot of shoreline erosion. So this summer, we're beginning a project to protect that southern shoreline and the habitat behind it. So Rodney, if you can go to those slides that I sent you just right before, there we go. Whoa. Back one.
Backward.
I'll do this really quick because I know we're almost out of time.
We're good.
This shows that red line is where the original 1999 shoreline was, and the yellow shows where the line is now, the shoreline, because of the severity of the erosion. So we are, as I said, constructing this stabilized shoreline. And if you go to the next slide, this project is being funded, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, by Prop 68 funds coming to us through the Ocean Protection Council, Prop 1 funds coming to us from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and Measure AA funds coming to us from the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority, and port money contribution as well. And do you have one more slide that shows what's going to be closed while we're doing? Yeah. So between September of 22 and end of calendar 22, maybe into January of 23, those areas in pink will be closed because the contractor will be building this new natural shoreline to protect erosion, allow for sea level rise adaptation, and improve habitat. The green trail and the blue trail are going to remain open. And Michael Hammond, you will be happy to note that we, based on your comment that you made during one of our other meetings, we're going to require the contractor to keep that intersection open.
Yeah.
Between August and end of calendar 2022, it won't be the absolute best time to visit Heron's Head Park, but go before and especially after, because the shoreline that we're creating is really a new and different kind of habitat, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to attract different kinds of birds in addition to the ones that are there now. And I really encourage you guys to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's our call to action. That's why we're doing this show now, because this is the time to go to Heron's Head. If you haven't been there already, you'll fall in love with it. You'll be a little heartbroken between August and in the end of December, and then you'll go back and it'll be even better.
Carol, are they going to be bringing in the fill along the trail there in the trucks and then carrying it down to the shoreline, or are they going to be bringing it in on marine transport?
Yeah, we still don't have the contractor's operations plan. So we still think, and Rodney, if you can go back to that slide you just had up, we still think that they're going to be bringing all the rock and gravel for the shoreline on trucks on the trail. But they are going to be bringing the Oyster Reef elements, which are those tiny, tiny blue dots on this slide. They're going to be bringing those by using marine equipment, barges to like float them in. And just so everybody else knows what we're talking about, these Oyster Reef balls are spherical structures made out of special ecologically friendly concrete that are going to be placed in the lower intertidal zone to attract oyster settlement and create habitat for fish and marine invertebrates and other algae and other organisms that are the base of the food chain.
And I assume they'll restore the trail?
Yes, they will completely rebuild the trail.
Okay.
Great. Well, we should probably move on since we are at 8:30. I did have a couple pictures of like amazing bird life there. It's definitely a place to bring your binoculars and just go hang out, go out on that trail that go to the end of the spit of land, and you'll have a delightful time. Also, there's a lot of community engagement going on there, school groups coming in the Ecosys Center, which by the way will not be closing. This is the Ecosys Center. That's a really interesting place with I guess it's like a very green, like it generates its own electricity, and it's got its own sewage treatment, and you can see it all, and there's really great people in there who can explain it. And any of like school groups coming in, checking it out. Anything you want to add about the Ecosys Center, Carol?
No, I mean, gosh, there's so much I could say about it. That's like worth another whole show. But yes, you're right. It's the first LEED Platinum building in San Francisco, remains the smallest LEED Platinum building in San Francisco. It's completely off the grid. Its only connection to municipal utilities is potable water. It's staffed by our partners from the Department of Recreation and Parks. There's lots of great programs for kids and all ages, and it's open. I put the hours in the chat for just anyone to drop in, and you'll just meet a friendly young person from Rec and Park who can tell you all about the building.
Yeah, that's cool. It's the first, I didn't know it was the first LEED Platinum. I know there's another famous port property that is LEED Platinum, which is Oracle Park, first Major League Baseball stadium to be LEED Platinum. And they've got the green gloves to prove it.
Right. They win the Green Glove Award every year.
So we will we'll wrap this up and just again go to Heron's Head. You'll have a great time. Tell us how you enjoyed it. We've got information on Heron's Head and other information from this show on our website. We didn't get a Serena selection for June, so Serena's we're have to have 2 next month. This is the one from last time, which is American Canyon, which is, by the way, where I'll be speaking for the 350 Bay Area. I'll be speaking at American Canyon. And then Ross is going to get the Bay Trail map cards. He seemed to be generously offering them to someone else. Oh, and I blew it. I didn't put any of basically almost all the photos were either Mark, Tom, or me. And then I guess you guys gave me a lot of photos. We always like to wrap up with happy trails from Jason Myers. So here we go.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds if we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Until we meet again.
All right, happy trails, everybody. Some thank yous. I want to thank Midnight Kitchen, who provided the music that we played in the slideshow. Always want to thank my wife, Sarah, who gives me lots of great feedback on this. I really want to thank our guests who came on. So thank you, Carol, Michael, Mark, and Tom. You guys were great to discuss all this stuff with. Really appreciated that. I do want to warn everybody, there's not going to be a show in July. We're going to skip to August. So the next show will be August 3rd, and I'm working on a topic for that. And we do like to give you guys a chance to unmute and ask questions or make statements. So give me a second, I will do that. You guys can unmute if you want to. And you could raise a hand if you wanted to be called on, or you could just, we're not a big group, so you could unmute and say whatever you want to say. So anybody have any thoughts, questions, experiences with Heron's Head Park, or are you going to try to go around the entire bay in one day on public transit and either bicycles or foot? What are your thoughts tonight?
Well, hi, Rodney. It's Regina.
Hey, Regina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? This is my first time visiting the other persona.
Yeah, Regina is one of we're fellow guides for what I affectionately call the San Francisco Unnamed Museum of Art, or SF-UMA.
But I'm a big urban person. I used to serve on the advisory committee for the, buying open space for San Francisco, the Open Space Advisory Committee to Rec and Park. So I'm familiar with a lot of the parks in San Francisco, and I always want to know more about any new parks that are becoming online, and Heron's Head is just gorgeous. And I want to congratulate you on your Bay Area Trails circumnavigation. Now I don't have to do it because you've done it for me. So thank you.
We set the record. Thanks, Regina. And I didn't know that side of you involved with open space, but
yeah, that was a long, long time ago. And then we had to go back to the ballot and, get it reinstituted, but it's been reinstituted twice now for like about 15 years apiece. So we're very fortunate to have that acquisition fund to purchase land in the city for parks.
Do you have, I hate to put you on the spot, but if you had to pick like one favorite spot of all the public space or all the open space in San Francisco, do you have one?
I'm a Gemini. Don't ask such a question.
You can get out of it.
The park that I'm in is my favorite park at the moment.
What park is that?
Any park that I'm in.
Oh, the one, that's how I always feel. Like,
The park that I'm in at the moment is my favorite place to be.
that's how I feel about the Bay Trail. And that's kind of what drives this show. So thanks, Regina. And I hope I get to see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, one of these years.
Cool. Other thoughts? Who else wants to jump in with a thought on the show or one of the topics? Or something else related to the Bay Trail. I think I will plug, especially since I have you, Regina, the next tour my next brand new tour is going to be Yerba Buena Gardens. The Yerba Buena Gardens Festival people have asked me to create a tour of the public art at Yerba Buena Gardens. And it's been fun engaging with that art. But it also, I've done a lot of research on the history of that block, which is like this amazing place where a very important brewery was there in the 19th century that had implications for San Francisco history. Like maybe the most impactful brewery in our entire history was in that block, the Albany Brewing Company. There was a popcorn factory there, although not at the same time as the brewing company, sadly. Sausage factory that was right across the street from the Grand Opera House. So a lot of interesting history there. A lot of people were displaced by the building of Yerba Buena Gardens in the convention center, and that'll be part of it.
Don't forget that whole history.
Oh, I'm not going to.
The SROs and all. I was involved in some of that back in the 1970s.
Like, you weren't part of Toddco, were you?
Not Targo, but I know all those folks. No, I was part of the people working to make sure that people didn't get displaced from the single occupancy hotels, the whole community. And that was through attorneys and legal aid and activists in the community back then.
Yeah, it's like amazing how many hotels were in that block. And it's funny because there's still hotels on the other side of 3rd Street, but there were like 10 different hotels over the years in that area.
Even more than that, yeah, and the whole Filipino community and lots of different displacement of different groups. So there's, John Elberling at Toddco can give you a lot of background on that.
Cool. So that's what I'm working on. Anybody else want to jump in with a thought? What about you, Tom, Mark? What do you guys? So, Mark, you're about to embark on this on the AIDS life cycle.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I do have a piece of Bay Area Railroad trivia I can share with you here that has to do with our ride. And I don't know if anybody's aware, but I'll make you guys aware that the same fellow who was the founder of what is now called Caltrain was a co-founder of the railroad that turned into SMART many, many decades later. And his name was Peter Donahue. He's considered the father of industrial San Francisco, if you look him up on Wikipedia.
Oh my goodness.
And Peter Donahue has a statue dedicated to him, the Mechanics Monument at Market and Bush in San Francisco. And that monument was designed by Tilden, Mr. Tilden, whose name is famous in the park. So Peter Donahue, look him up on Wikipedia, and that's a railroad historical connection between what was the Northwestern Pacific and is now called SMART, and what was the San Francisco and San Jose Railroad and is now called Caltrain.
Wow, that's really interesting. And because you realize there's like a real rich history of these train lines. They were kind of essential for the development of the region.
Kind of.
And we didn't really talk about the fact that, like, Mark, what were your thoughts on riding the SMART train?
Oh, well, I liked it.
Yeah, it's a really nice train.
There's never a train I've taken that I haven't enjoyed. So yeah, it's a very plush train. I mean, its capacity is limited. It's nothing like Bart in terms of the number of people it can haul or the number of trains a day. But if you're one of the riders, I think you guys who are with me would agree it's a pretty nice ride and lovely scenery.
Yeah,
And lovely
Plus,
scenery, nice tables in there, so you can, spread out your lunch, and great to do with a couple of people as a social ride.
yeah, I would really, people should think about, maybe going to Larkspur on the ferry, or you could drive, parking there, or getting off the ferry and getting on Smart and going to Petaluma or someplace, or Santa Rosa, and making a day of it. I think that would be like a delightful thing to do for the day. We have Paco in the audience. Paco, we haven't heard from you. What did you think of the show tonight?
They're just very engaging too. We should have plugged this into the community living campaign, one of our art viewing adventures too.
We should do that. So I do
Like
do other
Yerba Buena too.
I do other virtual programs, and I'll be doing one not this Monday, but I guess a week from Monday. We do the second and fourth Monday of the month. And we always have a really great time talking about art. Well, thanks, Paco. It's just always great to see you in the audience.
Oh, you're gonna be on vacation, Rodney.
Yeah, but I'll still be doing my art programs. Okay, I'll do them remotely. I just decided not to do this one from the road, because also I do a lot of prep to get ready for the programs. I see that Lisa has her hand raised. Lisa was our host in San Jose for the pizza. So Lisa, thank you so much for that. And how's Juniper doing tonight? Are you able to unmute, Lisa? Let me see if I can. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Unmute again. I think I screwed you up, Lisa. There you go.
All right, there we go. Hey, Rodney. Hi, guys. Yeah, actually, I had a question about the SMART train, or about that area along there. Is there a trail or a nice way to walk where you could spend, so let's make it about 25 miles or so, walking and staying along the way over 3 days, and then take the train back? A little mini Camino kind of thing?
Well, that's kind of interesting, because that was the plan, was there was going to be bike trail along that whole area. And they did it in some spots. So I think it goes from like San Rafael up to Civic Center, but it doesn't really go from the Civic Center. It doesn't go to Hamilton, unfortunately. So that's really too bad, because
it wouldn't have to be a bike trail necessarily, although of course that's preferred. Even if it were streets that were pleasant to walk on, they weren't super busy streets.
I think I think you could come up with that. I bet you we could come up with a SMART train enabled walking experience in Marin.
That would be awesome.
That's a great idea.
And with places to stay in between. So say like maybe target a 10-mile day. And you could go like and walk and stay kind of thing, and then take the train back.
I could certainly get you some information on that. I think I'd want to empower a group of people to come together to work on this, just so I don't take on more than I should. But I think you probably have it. There's probably what you're looking for is probably there,
Well, let me offer up that I'll bet the people at SMART, because the concept was that a trail would be made parallel to the railroad, and they don't have that currently. They probably have what they consider to be a working equivalent for the time being. And so they may have already mapped that out and say, here's what we've got for now.
That'd be cool. It sounds like fun.
I think I could come up with some good walking. Like you can go from Civic Center to Hamilton. I think you can hike that pretty well. There's going to be some roads that you may have to be along for a short distance. And it's all
roads
because
are okay as long as there's sidewalks and they're not, super busy, ugly roads.
I have to go and scout it.
If you're interested to chat, I don't know anything about that area really. So, but the way you were talking about the SMART train, it made me feel like that might be a really good link.
The other thing, Lisa,
Gail, you might check with Marin County Open Space, because they'll have maps, and frequently you can hike between open spaces, and that would maybe solve your problem for Marin County.
Another area to think about where you can do like hikes in conjunction with using a train to get around. And I think there would be accommodations would be the Carquinez Strait. And I think you and I talked about that a little bit.
Yeah,
Lisa.
actually, I have kind of have a plan that go around in about 4 days. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to want to come up with some of this stuff and put it out on Bay Trail Confidential as like kind of Bay Trail Confidential recommended experiences.
I
or
would
suggested
be
experiences.
interested in figuring out how to put an expedition together to do that, or to test it out, or come up with a plan.
Yep, that's our goal, is
Cool.
like local travel experiences, like where you get the same kind of experience you would have going to some distant place, only it's here and you're using public transit. So you're
Exactly.
like, you know,
Awesome.
very low carbon impact kind of travel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And it was just great to meet you in person after, you know, Lisa, you and I just know each other from this show. That's how we became acquainted with
Yeah.
one another.
No, it was really fun having you guys here, giving you a little break on your expedition.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to give us pizza on future expeditions? Get in touch, you know. Other thoughts? Anyone else? Ethel, what did you think? What did you think of the show tonight?
You know, every show is my favorite place. But I think that Heron's Head, with this new work that's going to be happening, is really, if it was a favorite place now, it's going to be like a really super favorite place when all this work is done. So yeah, maybe a little sad to be cut off from it for a while, but the reframe is what we're going to have on the other end.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
There you go. There you
Sounds
go.
like it's going to be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you know, I think what Carol's doing, what great. Carol had to leave, by the way, but she's been great to work with, and we're really grateful to have people like her in public service.
And I'm just always reminded that this was one of the first places that we explored when we had COVID, right? And you know, living in the city, and it was all brand new to me, and it was wonderful. And going from there from Heron's Head to India Basin, Shoreline Park is just a whole new part of the city again, right? Another place in the city that we learn about through Bay Area Confidential.
Yep, Michael, we're going to be back in your neighborhood. Just be ready.
Ready with the pizza,
But
Michael.
we'd love to hear more from you about things as they develop in the Bayview Hunters Point area.
You know, the one thing we didn't mention was the great nurseries.
That's true. We didn't talk about the
Bay natives.
Bay
Yeah.
natives, and then I guess there's another one called Heron's Head Nursery too. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's Heron's Head Nursery.
And which one has the chickens?
That's a Bay Area native, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, you're thinking of Bay natives, and they're connected to another organization called The Farm, which is a very loose collective of people that engage in gardening, amongst other things, and have a lot of fun doing it. So yeah, well, I've certainly enjoyed being on the show. I want to thank you all for
that was an important goal, Michael,
for inviting me, and you're welcome back to the neighborhood anytime you want.
Yeah, I
So-
hope we get to meet in person sometime.
Yes.
And like I said, I think we are very like-minded. You're lucky to live there, and I'm lucky to be able to visit.
Yes, you're welcome anytime. So just give me a holler. And so I'm going to say goodnight, and I thank you again for having me on your show.
Good night, Michael.
Good
And I
night,
think,
Michael. Nice to meet you.
I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. Want to say thanks again to you, Michael, Carol, Tom, Mark, Lee, and Ethel. It's great doing the show with you, and see you guys all in 2 months. Everyone stay safe.
Stay safe. Yeah.
Go Giants.
Okay,
Enjoy the
great to
50th
have you.
anniversary of
Right,
Watergate.
Rodney.
Hey, everyone.
And happy Pride Month to everybody.
Enjoy your summer.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Great summer too.
See you soon, Paco.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Bye.